Okay, thank you very much. This morning we have Dr. Akinradewo. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Free State, specializing in digital technologies and sustainability in the built environment. And he earned his PhD in construction management from the University of Johannesburg, where his blockchain adoption research won top doctoral awards in 2022. He has over 160 publications. I checked online, I was blown away by the number of citations from 2019 till 2025. He has about 1,302 citations, and with each index of 20H index and high index, I-10 index about 39. So this morning we have with us Dr. Opeoluwa Akinradewo. I will give him opportunity to say other things about himself. He has experience managing multi-million rand projects. He has supervised numerous postgraduate students and currently served as a research fellow at INTI International University, Malaysia. I don't know about that, but he will give us more information about him. You are welcome, Dr. Opeoluwa Akinradewo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Damilari. Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, there's nothing much to say beyond what the introduction Mr. Jensek has presented already. So I guess we'll be moving into the discussion of the day. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Good morning once again. So today we'll be talking about a topic which is very dear to my heart. Even though it was suggested by the executives of NANSSA, I believe it's one particular area that I enjoy when I'm talking about it. So I feel very, very happy when I was given that particular topic to speak about it for today. Just to assist with the internet, I think I'll turn off my video so that we don't have, the internet is not lagging. I hope that is fine with everyone. So, yes, my name is Dr. Opeoluwa Akinradewo. I'm a quantity surveyor by profession. Also, I work as a construction manager before moving into the academic space. However, having moved to the academic space, I practice from time to time as a project manager just to oversee the construction activity. A quick biography about myself. I have my BTech in quantity surveying at the Federal University of Technology, Akure. That's in 2015. Then I followed it up with an MTech in quantity surveying at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa in 2020. I had the opportunity of participating in the diploma in deep dive into blockchain at the University of Zurich, Switzerland, 2020, just after the COVID period. And then I had my PhD in construction management from the University of Johannesburg in 2023. I will not bore us much about the number of publications whatsoever or the supervision, but yeah, that's just information about myself. So for today's discussion, the content of our discussion will look at the genesis of bibliometrics. What is bibliometrics? We'll then talk about the uses of bibliometric review, the limitations of bibliometric review, because most people do not see the picture that as much as you have something quantitative to present to people, there are also limitations to what you can adopt it for. So we'll take a look at some of those limitations. Then we'll have a discussion about the food for thought based on what we have talked about in the whole presentation. before we then do a practical session on how to conduct the bibliometric review. I believe it's not going to do us any good if we just have a theoretical discussion about bibliometrics without having to practicalize and then see how it works. So I'll try as much as possible to create enough time for us to be able to do a practical session on bibliometric review before we then move on to the conclusion. So, as a form of acknowledgement, I must mention that this particular presentation we are having today has been prepared with the help of many books, presentations, and websites. So I do not take, I do not say or claim I have all the information here produced by myself. I've only been able to compare and contrast, gather information from what people have done in the body of knowledge. So at this point in time, I therefore acknowledge all authors, professors, and experts for their efforts and contribution to the body of knowledge, which is assisting me in making this particular presentation. And also, I must say special thanks to NANSSA for this platform to contribute to the body of knowledge. I know there are a lot of people out there that could have been invited for this particular session, so I do not take the opportunity for granted. Thank you so much, NANSSA. So as I've mentioned, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants, just as Isaac Newton had said. So our presentation today will emanate from presentations from contents that other professors, other authors have contributed to the body of knowledge. I would not say I started what we know today as bibliometrics. So as a form of introduction, we'll look at the genesis of bibliometrics. And before the term bibliometric was proposed by Alan Pritchard in 1969, there used to be something that we call statistical bibliography. Statistical bibliography is more or less the use of statistical methods and analysis to study the bibliographic characteristics of texts, documents, or sets of documents. And it is subfield within the broader domain of bibliometrics, which is now concerned with the quantitative analysis of written publications, such as books, articles, and other scholarly work. So according to Alan Pritchard in 1969, when he was proposing this, based on what Hulme in 1923 had initiated as the statistical bibliography, he suggested that the term bibliometrics and scientometrics could be used interchangeably because the idea or what we are planning to get out of what has been published is to see the trends, conduct a quantitative analysis to understand the dynamics of all these publications. So if we're going to do a review and we have a large volume of publications to review, the best approach would be to do a statistical bibliography, to do a quantitative analysis of all these publications so that we can have a better understanding of what the trends in these publications are, what are the approaches that has been adopted, what were the findings from these studies, because it's going to take a longer time to say we want to start reading individual publication one after the other. It could be books, it could be journal articles, it could be conference proceedings, or it could be a combination of all of these different forms of publications. So that's basically where the idea of bibliometrics generated from. Then, what is bibliometric? As a simple definition, I would always say bibliometrics is the statistical analysis of bibliographic data, commonly focusing on the citation analysis of the research outputs and publications. So as I've mentioned earlier, it could be books, it could be journal articles, it could be conference proceedings, it could be book chapters, and any other published item that you can find in the body of knowledge. So what we want to look specifically is try to do a citation analysis in a quantitative manner, beyond the qualitative aspect of systematic literature review that we are familiar with. We then want to bring out a sort of quantitative results, quantitative findings more or less not empirical in nature, but at least we can identify the quantities, maybe in terms of the trends from that particular publication field, or the highest cited article, or we want to see the highest published author in that particular field. So bibliometrics come in place when we have a situation like that. And usually we say the citation shows us how many times a research output and publication have been cited, which then gives us an insight maybe to the impact of that particular publication. However, we need to also have a better understanding that just because a particular publication has more citation does not necessarily mean that it has more impact than other articles. So we continue to delve into that particular discussion as we proceed. So looking at the different uses of bibliometric review, the first approach we'll look at is your bibliometric review helps us to uncover emerging trends in articles in a particular field of study. So as I've mentioned earlier, if you're looking at, say, for instance, publications in a particular field for, let's say, I'll try to use something that we can easily relate with. Okay, let's use COVID-19 as an example. If we want to see the trends of publications relating to COVID-19, then we can go to a particular database, a popular database that we know people publish and index their articles or publications on. So then if we have access to such database, we can extract all the publications that are related to COVID-19. And instead of sitting down to start reading over 2,000 publications, we can subject it to bibliometric review so that we then have an understanding of how many publications are focused on COVID-19 within a particular period. So we can look at it for maybe 2010 up until 2025. And one thing will be evident that publications on COVID-19 would be fewer before 2020, and then probably have its peak between 2020 and 2023, and then gradually going down again after 2023, because that's the way people in the academic space viewed that particular phenomenon within that particular period of time. So if we are conducting a bibliometric review, it helps us, it gives us the opportunity to have an understanding of what has emerged in that particular field of study within a particular period of time. Then also, it can be adopted to uncover the journal performance, collaboration patterns, and the research constituents. So for instance, we can take your bibliometric review to look at a particular journal specifically. So we can take, let's say, a journal of cleaners production, and then say we want to look at how many publications they have over the years. What are the citation trends for their publication? Probably in the first 5 years, they have low number of citations. Then within the next 5 to 10 years, the citation number grew at an exponential rate. So this can give us an understanding of how the journal has performed within a particular period of time. Then we can also make use of it to understand the collaboration patterns. How many people have worked together to publish an article in this particular research area? What are the different collaboration opportunities that have been presented in this particular field? So we can look at people publishing on maybe COVID-19 as an example again, to say, okay, most of the people publishing are from this particular institution, or they are from this particular, or they are getting funding from this particular organization to carry out their research on COVID-19. So this gives us an insight on the collaboration pattern. Then also we are able to use it for research constituents to understand what are the different approaches or the different areas that people are focusing on in this particular field. What are they talking about? What is their research findings about? And what are the approaches they are adopting in conducting their research? All of this can be achieved using bibliometric review. Another use is the exploring the intellectual structure of a specific domain. So if we're using this COVID-19 as an example again, with a bibliometric review, we are able to understand the idea of people within that particular research area. What are the different causes of COVID-19 that people are talking about? Or what are the basic findings that people have been able to establish depending on the different researches that they have carried out on COVID-19 within their own environment. So also your bibliometric review will assist us to estimate the published articles comprehensively. We'll be able to understand the strengths and the weaknesses of research within a particular subject area. So if we're looking at same COVID-19 example, with your bibliometric review, we are able to see which particular article has more citations and what's the impact of this citation in the body of knowledge. Is it being cited by just one particular set of people, or is it having a global relevance such that different publications from different areas across the world are making use of that particular article? So it gives you an idea of the strengths and weaknesses of the different publications we have out there in a particular subject area. Then it also helps us to identify core sources like the possible journal outlet that is focusing on a particular research area. So if you're working on a paper on COVID-19 and you intend to have a better outreach for your paper or for your article, then you can conduct a bibliometric review on other published COVID-19 papers so that you can have an understanding of how many papers are published in a particular journal. So the journal with the highest number of publications on COVID-19 should suggest to you to an extent that that might be the possible or the best outlet to publish your paper on COVID-19 on. Also, depending on the impact factor or the your strength in going through the review process, you might be able to then decide, my paper I'm working on currently, I intend to get it out there within the next 6 months. The journal with the highest number of publications probably takes about 8 months for their first review stage. That will not fit into my own scope for my paper. So rather look for other outlets that are publishing on COVID-19 also that fits into my timeline for publishing the paper. Although I would say determining your own timeline for the publication is subjective and could look as if you have not done something thorough. That's why you are setting a particular timeline. But it depends on the timeline you are working with concerning that particular research, especially if that particular research is being funded. So with your bibliometric review, you are able to identify the core sources and know where to publish your article at. Then also it helps us to study obsolescence and dispersion of scientific literature. There could be some research that are no longer in vogue. People are no longer looking at research in that particular area. So it's like conducting a research on the different machine languages or programming languages in computer science, and you want to start writing a paper on Fortran 77 as an example, or say assembly language whatsoever. So it could be an area that is no longer relevant in the body of knowledge. With bibliometric review, you can easily pick that out, that the last publication in this particular database on this area I want to carry out my research on was in 2017. Could that be that this particular area is no longer relevant in the body of knowledge? Or what exactly is happening in that particular area? Are people looking at a different perspective now? For instance, artificial intelligence is one area that is cutting across all the different research areas or research fields in the body of knowledge currently. So if you're going to carry out a bibliometric review on artificial intelligence, you will see the trend has gone up within the last 5 years. And you even have more within the last 2 years compared to what was in existence within the last 10 years. So this gives you an idea of what is trending now, what are people looking at. In your own field, you can then use that as a tool to determine how to position yourself in carrying out research going forward. Also, it helps us to study the productivity of institutions, individuals, and disciplines. So easily, if you want to see what a particular person is publishing on, what's the trend of their publication, or what's the trend of their productivity. If you go to Google Scholar as an example and you search for a person's research profile, you see there's usually a particular chart that shows you the trend of their citation within a period. That's a typical example of what bibliometric review will tell you. So if you want to go a step further, you can then take publications from a particular database and say, I want to see how many publications are coming from a particular institution in this particular database, and then you aggregate based on the findings of your bibliometric review. And lastly, it helps us to identify areas of research strengths and weaknesses. I've mentioned on that a little bit earlier, using the example of artificial intelligence as a typical case. So with your bibliometric review, you are able to understand what people are talking about currently and what are the gaps that exist based on what people have been saying. So you could carry out a bibliometric review looking at the trends of artificial intelligence publications in, say, for instance, in the built environment. So when you carry out that type of bibliometric review, you see the trends within the last 5 years, as an example, that people have been talking about artificial intelligence application, maybe for designs. People have been talking about it in terms of safety, in terms of maybe estimating, budgeting, and the likes. Also, you can then pick out to say, okay, people have talked about artificial intelligence in these 4 different areas, but no one is talking about artificial intelligence in, let's say, as an example, in site monitoring. So then you can sit down and start looking at it to say, is there a relevance of artificial intelligence in site monitoring? That could be an area that you can then focus on, maybe for the next 5 years, build a career on that particular aspect and become a known name in that field. So with your bibliometric review, you are able to identify the areas of research strength and weaknesses and position yourself appropriately in carrying out that particular research you want to focus on, or maybe there's a need to just move out or move away from that particular idea. So as I've mentioned in all of this, your bibliometric review will help you identify the top researchers in the subject area, which can then be useful for locating potential collaborators or competitors. It can help you to identify the possible funding organizations for research in that area. It then also gives you the opportunity to learn more about the subject area, informing your, say, for instance, you want to recruit a postdoc or a professor in that particular field. You want to appoint them as your maybe distinguished visiting professor. Conducting a bibliometric review gives you an insight into who are the people publishing in this particular area. They could be the top knowledge in that particular field, and you can bring them into your organization or to your institution, depending on what you intend to carry out with that particular information. So there are different uses that you can put bibliometric review into, but in reality, there are limitations to it, which you then need to understand. Also, to dwell more on the uses, you can also, it can help you to develop norms of standardization. So you can have an understanding of what's obtainable when people are conducting research in this particular field. What exactly are they looking at? What's obtainable? What's the barest minimum that must be incorporated into my research that I want to publish in this particular area? So that gives you an idea of what the quantitative insights into the scholarly output, the citation patterns, and also the research impact. then it also helps you in demonstrating the importance and the impact of your own research. So if you have not taken time to look at it before, maybe when you are less busy, you can actually compile your own research information, your publication list, and then try to run a bibliometric, a quantitative analysis on your publication just to see the trends of your publication. What are the research areas you've been working on within the last maybe 10 years? And then start looking at the areas you focused on. Maybe in the first 2 years, you were looking at this particular research area. However, after the third year, your research moved gradually into a particular different field. And then you can also see your citation history based on each of these publications within different trends of your research area, and then give yourself an insight into which area you can focus more that gives you more visibility out there in terms of citations, in terms of readability of your research. Or you can also use it to understand which particular outlet have you published where you get more citations or you get people reading your work more. It might be a pointer for you to then focus more in publishing in that particular area. Also, your bibliometric review gives you the opportunity to identify users of different subjects. Who are the people citing a particular article that you have published, or who are the people using this particular research that you intend to adopt also for your own article you're writing. So it also helps you to identify authorship and the trends in documents of various subjects, forecast the past, present, and future publishing trends, and also identify the core periodicals in different disciplines so that you can identify where to publish your paper as and when required, depending on what you intend to achieve from that particular publication. Then it also helps you to predict the productivity of publishers, like I've mentioned. If you're going to publish your paper with a journal, you can see the trend to say when people publish in this particular journal, within the next 5 years, they get minimum of about 200 citations. That could be a very good avenue to put in your paper. Even if it's going to take about 6 months before you get the first review, you know the end goal you are working towards is having your paper in an outlet where it gives it more visibility. It could be because of their PR approach to published papers or whatsoever, whatever they are doing that is getting papers to get more citations would also assist your research in what you are doing and also boost your career at the end of the day. So having talked about the different uses, I've mentioned earlier that there are limitations of your bibliometric review, and majorly, this is because there are objectives and relatively easy ways to calculate all of these things and understand them. But the citation patterns varies from subject to subject. So we must take note of that. Just because someone in a particular field has more citations than another author in a different field within the same number of years does not necessarily mean this particular author has more impact on the body of knowledge than the other. The field where that person is could be a particular field that is assisting their research. So for instance, if you are a researcher on COVID-19, for instance, you would have more impact in the body of knowledge between 2020 and 2023. Your paper published on COVID-19 will have more citations than any other paper that someone published in a particular field, for instance, say in the built environment, simply because that particular subject area between 2020 and 2023 was something that everybody wants to have an understanding of. It's a particular phenomenon that it affects our individual daily life. And as such, people want to know what is happening. People want to understand what led us to this. What are the findings of people within that particular domain? And as such, their research gained more visibility. So just because that person became more productive within that particular period does not mean it will continue like that for the next 10 years. So if you're going to start a research lab in 2025 now, and you want your research lab to focus on COVID-19, it might not necessarily be the right way to go, because at this point in time, COVID-19 is not going to come up as a buzzword for people to pick up. So if you're going to be looking for funding for the research lab, it's going to be a bit difficult. Yes, there would be people who are still funding COVID-19 research currently, but it's not going to be the major focus of all funding outlets. Possibly right now, what would be a major points of funding for funding organizations would be artificial intelligence, because we have different LLMs, we have ChatGPTs and the likes, all of which are putting artificial intelligence out there for people to test and see what is obtainable. So definitely funding organizations would be looking at which other area can we still incorporate artificial intelligence into to assist people, and then see what groundbreaking research you can get out of that. So yes, your bibliometric review will show the citation patterns, but you must understand that it is limited to individual subject areas, and it is for a particular period of time, depending on how important that particular research trend is at that point in time. Then also, only a tiny proportion of published research is covered by the different database resources that we have. So at least to an extent, we can say Scopus and then Web of Science covers majority of all the publications that we have across the world. But there are still some research that are conducted in areas where they do not have the opportunity to index on these databases. So as much as you are able to get information from that database to make decisions about them, that does not necessarily mean that that's everything that is available within that particular field. There are some research that are still online, but not indexed in those databases. And there are some that are not even online. They still do print copies, depending on the different countries. This is typical for Nigerian conferences for now, although I know some universities are already coming up with the idea of indexing their conference proceedings in Scopus or maybe DOAJ and the likes. But just to use that as an example, there are still some research that are not covered in these databases. So your bibliometric review might not necessarily project the full picture of research in that particular domain. Then also, there's an issue of self-citation. So while you're using the citation analysis to understand the impact of research in a particular field, bibliometric review will not help you to account for self-citation. So you might have a skewed research output at the end of the day, or results, because someone has probably cited themselves over 50% of the citations their article has. And you would be assuming that their research has made tangible impact in the body of knowledge. So I'm not saying it's not going to have that tangible impact, but to an extent, when you have much self-citations, you are unable to see the actual impact of that particular research in the body of knowledge. So a bibliometric review would not be able to account for that particular limitation. Then also, review articles tends to be more highly cited than standard empirical articles. This is something that we have found out in the body of knowledge, mostly in the medical field. When you do a review article, you get more citations compared to empirical data studies. So in that case, you might not be able to get information that are from empirical findings to incorporate when you're doing your bibliometric review. Remember, you are trying to check the trends from research that people have done already. So you are also not doing an empirical study. Rather, you are conducting a review of what is available in the body of knowledge. And as such, the recommendations or the findings you can pick out from your research might not necessarily incorporate studies that have done empirical findings, that have conducted empirical research. And because there are how you structure the bibliometric review analysis to exclude some publications that have less citations, that could have eliminated findings from studies that were actual empirical in nature, which could influence the findings of your own research. So all of these limitations exist with bibliometric review. Also, citations to a paper may not reflect its quality. I've mentioned that earlier. Just because the paper has more citations does not necessarily mean it's of high quality. It could be because the journal is open access and people are able to access it from anywhere in the world. That's why they could cite that particular paper. But to an extent, when you have high citations also, it speaks volume about the quality of the work you have done for people to find it worthy to publish and then cite you in their papers. Then also, metrics do not tend to account for the age of your researcher. So someone could have been publishing for over 50 years and as such have better understanding of research. And they have done a particular article in a closed access journal, which requires subscription for you to access it. But someone who is starting out in research today gets the opportunity to publish their paper in an open access platform. You have access to the open access, and as such, you can cite that more. And eventually, when someone is conducting a bibliometric review, it would not reflect that the person who did the paper in the closed access journal has more experience, more reputation in the field than the person who have done the paper in the open access journal. So there are different dynamics that could influence the number of citations a paper has, which the bibliometric review would not be able to factor in when you are conducting such. And because of that, you must be very, very careful when you are drawing conclusions and making inferences from the findings of your bibliometric review. Moving on now, as a summary of everything we have discussed thus far, the aim of your bibliometric review specifically is to summarize large quantities of bibliometric data to present the state of the intellectual structure and emerging trends in a particular research topic or a particular research field. All of that is what you intend to achieve because of this bibliometric review you are bringing in. And the usage, it's when the scope of review is broad. When the data set is too large to be manually reviewed, you automatically need to conduct a bibliometric review. If you have articles that you intend to review for maybe just about 10 to 15 articles in that particular research area, it might not be useful to conduct a bibliometric review because that's still a tangible number that you can review manually and be able to extract information from. But when you're sitting with publications that are over 1,200 for a particular research area, automatically you do not have the time to sit down and start reading them to understand their research view, the findings, and the approach they have adopted. And as such, your bibliometric review is very, very important. So based on that, we say the data required would be a large bibliographic data of publications in that particular field. Then the analysis approach to be adopted are in two folds. The first one is the quantitative, where you conduct the analysis and evaluation. You try to look at the citation trends, the co-citation history, the co-authorship, the collaboration opportunities, patterns, and the likes, funding, organizations, and all of those things. All of that will fall under the quantitative analysis approach. However, having done this quantitative, there has to be an interpretation, which then leads us to the qualitative aspect. So you are not just compiling charts, tables, and the likes. You are also going to do an interpretation and discuss these findings. So then there is the qualitative aspect of the analysis that you need to incorporate when you're carrying out your bibliometric review. Moving on now to the food for thought. For you to be able to achieve something tangible, there has to be a combination of systematic and bibliometric review. That is usually the best way to go. It's the ideal way to go for you to make a publication. Don't just sit down with the bibliometric review without having the systematic review incorporated into it. The systematic review will give us an insight into what the general discussion about that particular research area, while the bibliometric review would then give us quantitative results that can give us insight into the different trends, the co-citations, and the likes. So your bibliometric, as I've mentioned, will confirm the importance of the research, while the systematic will identify the knowledge gap, the theory, and also help you to develop the theoretical or conceptual framework that is required for the study. So please, when you're conducting your research, try as much as possible to not just rely on the bibliometric review to publish your paper. Also do the systematic review so that you can have something robust to put out there for reviewers to consider, and then it makes your paper publishable. It gives your paper credibility, and reviewers are able to recommend it for publication at the end of the day. So any question from what we have discussed so far before we move into the practical session of how to conduct bibliometric review? Do we have any question?
Hi. Hello. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, please.
Yeah, my name is Taiwo, Dr. Taiwo. So
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah. So I noticed that you said bibliometric review consists of the qualitative method and the quantitative. So there's no, are you saying there's no bibliometric review method that is one method only, whether it is either qualitative only or quantitative method only?
Okay.
Do you understand? What I'm saying
yes,
is that you said it has to be a mixed method. Does it have to be a mixed method, or can't it just be one method only?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question, Dr. Taiwo. Yes, your bibliometric review could be only qualitative, but it can't, it could be only quantitative rather, but it can't be qualitative only. Qualitative in the sense that it then takes away the bibliometric aspect and restricts your review to just being a systematic research. So the incorporation of the analysis that you bring in, the tables, the charts, and the likes, is what we refer to as the quantitative aspect. So if that quantitative aspect is missing, then it's no longer a bibliometric review. It's more or less a systematic review. I see there's a comment in the chat box that talks about speaking about the systematic review. So I'll just try and combine that with this question. So your systematic review is an approach where you try to look at articles based on the content and you review them in different approaches. You could be, you can adopt what we call the chronological review approach, where you try to compare 3 different articles, what they are saying in a particular field, and then adopt them in terms of the year of publication. So you could have something that talks about, say, Opeoluwa in 2015 talked about construction in the built environment as an approach to getting infrastructure in place for people within a particular environment. However, Adekunle in 2019 suggested that even though you are providing infrastructure for people in a particular community, construction in the built environment goes beyond that. It also involves bringing in the stakeholders to have an opinion. So based on that, Sade in 2022 then conducted a study who found out that construction stakeholders, community members, end users all play a major role in achieving the infrastructure at the end of the day. That's you conducting systematic review on 3 different authors speaking about a particular idea. So you've reviewed the work they have done manually, and you are making a findings based on what they have said. So you're making a sentence, a paragraph based on their work. That's a systematic review approach. That's qualitative research. You are just making inference based on their findings. However, your qualitative, which is the bibliometric now, will not just give you an insight into what they are saying. It will also tell you that 15 articles were published in 2015 that talked about construction in the built environment. And having talked about those, the 15 articles in 2015, in 2016, another 18 articles were published that speaks about this particular idea also. But it's not telling you what their findings are. So your systematic will be able to get an insight into what the actual findings from this research are. What are the various people they looked at? What are the various constructs that were combined into getting those findings? So that's the difference between the systematic and the bibliometric. Bibliometric will talk to you in terms of numbers. Systematic will talk to you in terms of the actual content. It's the content analysis of individual publication. So if you're going to do a bibliometric and you're only talking about numbers, it does not really contribute to the body of knowledge. Hence, we say bibliometric must be quantitative and also it must be qualitative. Both of them must be combined for your paper to be worthy of publication to any journal outlet at the end of the day. So rather than just having discussions of what the different articles are, bibliometrics then gives you a step ahead to bring in numbers, bring in quantitative results so that people can see, okay, this is what is happening in this particular area. This is what people have been publishing about. These are the areas that they are focused on. And this is an area that is still missing in all of their findings that you can then situate your own research to focus on. I hope that answers your question. Okay, thank you very much. So I believe we can proceed now to the practical session on Box Viewer, just to give us an insight. I see we'll still have about 1 hour to go for this session. So I'll try as much as possible to spend about 30, 40 minutes so that we can then take more questions before the end of the session. So talking about conducting bibliometric review, there are different softwares, different platforms that we can adopt for conducting bibliometric review. A typical example of this is the Biblioshini, which is a more recent platform that people use now for conducting bibliometric review. We also have the SiteSpace. SiteSpace is more older in version compared to Biblioshini. And then also we have Box Viewer. For the purpose of this particular discussion, I'll be focusing on the use of Box Viewer. It's not because this one is better than the other ones, but I've used this one over time and I am more familiar with it. What you are going to achieve with Box Viewer, you are also able to achieve with site space, or biblioshini. So it's not, it's just a matter of preference. That's why I'm focusing on Vox Viewer specifically for this particular presentation. And Vox Viewer is available from this website. You can just check it. It's available online free. You can type that website and download the software to your computer. I believe at the end of this session, there will be a recording that is shared for people. So you can always go back to the recording to then see how it works. So Vox Viewer specifically, there are software tools for visualizing networks, and it has a built-in support for the popular bibliographic databases that are available, such as your Web of Science, Scopus, PubMed, IEEE, Explore, Wiley, EBSCO, Google Scholar, and all of that. So any particular database that you are able to access and extract information from, you can bring it into your Vox Viewer. And what it does specifically is text mining functionality. So it mines the different text content in the title of the abstract, or in the title of the manuscript rather, the abstract of the manuscript, and also the keywords of the manuscript to be able to then form the basis of analysis that it is carrying out. So then it also have different layouts and clustering techniques that you can adopt depending on what you intend to achieve from the study. And also it has advanced visualization features such as your smart labeling algorithm. It helps you to label them by itself, but you can take it a step further and do whatever you want with that. It also has the opportunity to give you overlay visualization so you can see between this period of year to this particular period, this is the trend in the publications, this is the trend in the number of articles, or this is the trend in the areas people are looking at. And also, lastly, it gives you the opportunity to have the density visualization, the heat map. This is the particular area that's generating more publication within this particular period of time. We'll get to see that better. So generally, what you are able to achieve with this particular platform, first is the citation network of your publications or the journals or the authors or the organizations or the countries. So you can have at least 5 different outputs based on the citation network from any of the database you are extracting your data from. You can also do co-authorship network of authors, co-authorship network of organizations, or co-authorship network of countries. So that's another 3 different outputs that you can get outside what you already have earlier. You can also do co-citation network of your publications, the journals, the authors, the organizations, the countries, different approaches also. So here you're looking at the co-authors, who are writing together for this particular research area. This section looks at their co-citations. How many of these publications have been cited together in another article? So Opeoluwa 2015 did a research. Adekunle in 2019 did another research. Chukwuemeka in 2023 did another research. And a paper in that particular field of the 3 of them published in 2025 combined their results or combined their opinion to publish in its own paper in 2025. That's co-citation. So we can see that if 5 different people from different locations are conducting different research in a particular field, and their research is being relevant to a new research in a particular, in that same field, in a different environment, automatically it shows that there is something tangible these different researches are saying that is impacting the body of knowledge. So that's what the co-citation network looks at. Then we also have the bibliographic coupling of networks to see what's the intersection between their keywords, or what's the intersection between these journals, which of these journals are working together, which of these journals are publishing in the same area, which of these authors are working together within that particular environment or field to make publications. And lastly, you also have the opportunity to look at the co-occurrence network of their keywords. Which keywords are coming up often and often in publications within that particular research area? What terminologies or what specific buzzwords are coming out from research within that particular environment. So these are the various contents that you will be able to achieve from your bibliometric review. And the basic terminologies that we look at, that we put to use when we're doing bibliometric review, talks about the terminologies, the items rather. So items, for instance, are referring to objects of interest. So it could be publications, it could be researchers, it could be country, it could be keywords and the likes. That's what on this software, it refers to them as items. Then when you see links, links is a connection or a relationship between two items. So it's like a relationship. What's the link between item A and item B? It could be maybe they've published together, or they are cited together by an article or whatsoever. And each link has a strength represented by a positive numerical value. So the higher this value, the stronger the link. If a particular two authors have 15 links, that means their work has been co-cited 15 times, or it could be that they've worked together to publish articles 15 times, depending on what you are looking at specifically in terms of the analysis you are conducting. Then also we have the terminology of network. So network is a set of items now combined together. Remember, link is just between two items. Network is now between different sets of items that are connected together. So you are not just looking at two items in this case. And remember, items could be publications, it could be authors, it could be country, it could be journal outlets or the likes. So a network is now a combination of all these items together, forming a particular pattern. And then we have what we call the cluster. So cluster is a set of items included in a map. There could be 5 different clusters in one single network. The cluster will tell you how the keywords or how these authors are working together in that particular research field. If they are clustering in a particular area, it means their work is related to that particular area, or their citation is coming from this particular country, depending on how the clusters are shaped within the network. Also, for given items, the links and the total link strength attributes are the number of links of an item with other items, while the total strength of the links of an items with other items will show you how strength or how big or how large that particular item is influencing the body of knowledge altogether. So for example, in the case of co-authorship links between researchers, the link attributes will indicate the number of co-authorship links. That's showing you that these particular authors are working together within that particular research area, and they are working with other people from different locations. But the total link attributes will indicate the total strength of their co-authorship link. So if I'm looking at Opeoluwa, for instance, Opeoluwa could have links with 4 different authors, but the total link strength will show how powerful Opeoluwa has been able to collaborate with other authors. However, individual links will only show how much Opeoluwa has collaborated with Chukwuemeka, how much Opeoluwa has collaborated with Olatunde, how Opeoluwa has collaborated with James and the like. So that's the difference between the links and the total link strength. The total link will combine the different links that a particular item has with other items, depending on what you're looking at the end of the day. So moving into the analysis proper now, just before we go into it, I need to mention to you that Voice Viewer will not write the review for you. It's only going to show you the table, the results, the charts. You will need to do the writing, which is the qualitative aspect eventually. You need to interpret the data. You need to be able to make sense of what the findings are and be able to discuss it to the reviewers or the readers who are going to find that particular published article at the end of the day. So please take note of that. It's only going to show you the output, the results. You will need to do the writing yourself. So before you conduct your Vox Viewer, you must have a clear aim and achievable objective set. You are not just going to say, I'm going to conduct Vox Viewer or bibliometric review without having what you intend to achieve. Is it the co-authorship you want to look at, or is it the co-citation, or is it the bibliographic coupling of this particular research area you want to check? All of that must be clearly set, and not just you trying to just while away time by saying you want to conduct bibliometric review. Then also decide if a bibliometric review is necessary for the research you want to conduct or not. If bibliometric would not be applicable, you might just sit down with systematic literature review and then go ahead with your research work. However, if you're having more than sizable number of articles to review, then you can decide, I will just adopt a bibliometric review for this particular research. So what you then need to do is clearly define the search keywords you want to use, because wrong keyword selection can affect your outcome. I was sitting with some students recently and I found out they had conducted their bibliometric review using a keyword, which is not wrong in its sense, but the way they have adopted the keyword search became the problem. So remember, there is British English spelling, and then there's the US English spelling, the American English spelling. So for instance, in a sentence like digitalization, the British will use S in the digitalization, while the American will use Z. So when these students were conducting their search, they used digitalization using the S word. And because of that, the output limited the results they got from the database to publications using the S word, the British approach, unlike conducting that same search using the Z word. So the way they've structured the keywords limited the output they got from the database, and they had conducted all the analysis they intend to do. They've even done the interpretation and discussion before I found out that particular problem. So it became a process of going back to the beginning to start all over for this particular thing. So it is very, very important to define the search keywords clearly. If you're going to use words that have those dichotomies, then there is a need for you to know how to combine them within the search terms. Then also be ready to be critical in your interpretation of the data. Don't be biased. Don't use your emotions when you are interpreting the data, because you might be misinterpreting based on your bias or based on what you feel should be the approach. So what are the different steps? We start with outlining the research details. Remember, I said you must have set aim and objective. So first thing is to define the topic. What topic are you going to be researching on? Think about the scope of that particular topic. Think about the outcomes that could be. Then think about the management approach you intend to adopt for that particular research. And then plan your resources, plan the sources to be searched rather. So are you going to be using Web of Science, or you're going to be using Scopus? I must place a disclaimer here. Vox Viewer cannot combine Scopus and Web of Science together to do one single analysis. If you're going to use these two different databases, then you might need to do the analysis separately, or you extract information from the two databases and then combine them into one single sheet that you can then process through the Vox Viewer. But you can't say you are just downloading from this database, downloading from the other one, and then merging them together into one single spreadsheet and run straight up. You need to sit down and screen the information, align them appropriately, so that you can then be able to put it into Vox Viewer to conduct the analysis. So having established that, you then need to outline the research details. So for instance, I'm going to use this as an example here. I'm conducting a research on smart city development. So this is an area I want to look at. That's my topic for this particular research. And because of that, I'm setting my objectives as this. I have 4 objectives I'm outlining here. So I want to identify the countries and authors with the highest focus on smart city development in the last 10 years. The second objective is to identify the most cited published works and the sources on smart city development in the last 10 years. The third one is to map out the research focus in smart city development in the last 10 years. And the last objective is to identify the research trends. Remember, I'm mapping out the focus here, but for the last one, I'm identifying the trends in each of these research. So could it be that the first 2 years, these were the areas people were looking at in terms of smart city development? Then after 3 years, the research people were doing moved into this particular direction. And then later on, it moved into this. So we want to see the trend between this period of 10 years and see how we can navigate ourselves around it. So you must be able to outline the details of your research like this before you then proceed to the next step. So we go to step 2 now. In your step 2, you then select the appropriate database that you intend to use. For this research, like I mentioned, I'll be using Scopus database to search for my articles that are related to the topic I'm researching on. So if I go on to the Scopus database, this is the login, the landing page on Scopus. What I would do is I would select the keywords I intend to use for my search. As you can see here, even though I said my research will be smart city development, I'm also being a forward thinker to assume that some people would not use smart city development. Instead, they would use smart cities development. So based on that, I am connecting these 2 keywords by this particular command. We call it the logical operators. So this is a logical operator. By using the word or, I'm simply telling the database that I want to search within article title, the abstract, and the keywords for anything relating to smart city development. As you can see, it's in a parenthesis, which means it must search these 3 words together, or it must search these 3 other words together. So it's either it's in smart city development or it is in smart cities development. If it's in anything outside that, I don't want it to be part of this research. Then I also specify I want it from 2015 to 2024. Remember, we said 10 years period. Someone would say, why am I not using 2025? The reason being that 2025 is not concluded yet. And because of that, the findings I would get from 2025 will most likely skew the results for the previous years. So I would rather wait until when 2025 is over and we have all the publications indexed in Scopus before I include 2025 if I want to do a research or if I want to further that particular research. So for the purpose of this particular research, I will limit it to 2015 to 2024. Once I have done that, then I click on search. Now, let me quickly give us further information about how the keyword works. So when you're doing your keyword search, there are different commands that you must be able to incorporate. We call them the logical operators, like I've mentioned. So there are ways you put them into use. For instance, if I type remote in that search field, what the database will do is it will search for any documents containing the word remote and then bring them out. That could be in millions, because remote could occur in the topic, it could occur in the abstract, it could occur in the keywords for that particular article. So it will bring them out. But if I type remote access without any parentheses, what the analysis will do on the database is it will search for documents containing both remote and access separately, not combined together. Remember, I've only typed them without putting a parenthesis. But if I put a parenthesis, then what I'm saying to the database is these two words must occur together. They must be a phrase. Remote access must be typed following each other. And that then helps the database to limit the document to that exact phrase, remote access. If I do not do it in that way, if I just type remote access, anything that contains remote, whether it's in the title and then access is in the keywords, it will combine them together and then bring that particular document as one of the outputs that I should subject to my analysis, which can then affect the outcome of my research, because remote and access is different from remote access. That's how we need to understand the way we use the logical operators. Then the second aspect is we can then combine using and, or, not, plus. There are different other ones. When you use and, what you are saying, for example, is if you're searching within the database and you put and in between, for instance, if you say 1992 and Gonzalez and pleading, what the database will do is it will make sure these three words exist, might not necessarily be following each other, but if I can find 1992 in this article, and I can find Gonzalez in that same article, and I can find pleading in that same article, the database will include that particular document as part of your output to extract for your analysis. But if you use the word or, it means it will search for either truck or lorry. It's not going to search for truck and lorry. If this document contains truck, automatically it picks it up and adds it to your output. If it's containing lorry, it will take that particular document and add it to your output. That's what differentiates the and the or. Also, we have the not, which means the moment it sees not in your command, anything that comes after the word not, it must ignore it and not include it. So in essence, what you're telling the database is anytime it sees alone, it must ignore that particular document. Once alone is existing in the body of that document, it must be removed from what it's going to include in your output. Then you can use plus. So you can use this in this case to say plus is current position. So at any point in time when it is searching through the document and it sees anything that talks about the current position of, let's say you are searching for Gonzalez and you say plus is current position, and there's a sentence that talks about the current position relating to Gonzalez, automatically it brings in that particular document as part of what to be included in your output. Also, we have the use of asterisks, which then becomes a wildcard. So for instance, you might not know the complete spelling of a word. So let's say you want to search for workshop, but you don't know the spelling or you're not sure. So anything that has W-O-R and then you put asterisks after it, it tells the database that any word that starts with W-O-R then and has some other words or letters after it, it must include it. So you can have word ox, you can have word wide, you can have workshop, you can have worship. It will bring all of them out as part of the document to extract for your analysis. You can also have the quotes like I mentioned earlier, which means anything inside a quote, automatically it must search for that exact phrase. Then also you can use the word, the proximity logical operator. In essence, if you say W/X, what you then define what X is. So for instance, if you say hospital W10, which then means at any point in time where there is examination within 10 words of hospital existing in the content, maybe in the title of the article, in the abstract of the article, or in the keywords of the article, as long as there's hospital and examination within 10 words distance of each other, then the database must include that particular document in your output. So for example, if you have a word in the document that says she was taken to the hospital and given a thorough examination, because hospital and examination are existing within 10 words of each other, automatically that document becomes part of what it's bringing out as your output. Then you can also have X, Y, all within a range. So in essence, you're saying if there is ought and then there is 2, 4 dog, which then means X are both numbers. So you can find documents where word ought occurs prior to dog. So it's not in a particular order, but ought must come first and then dog must come last. It does not have to be within, it must not be ought dog rather. So what you are trying to say is the system must not include documents that has ought dog. But if dog exists after ought within 2 to 4 words, then that particular document must be included, not document that has ought dog. So an example is if it was so ought, if you have a sentence that says it was so ought, the dog ran beneath the sprinkler. What that means is dog is existing within 2 words space of ought. And as such, that particular document will be included in your output. But if you have a sentence that says he entered the hot dog eating contest, this particular document will not be included because dog is existing beyond a space of 2 words of hot. It's existing immediately after hot. So the system or the database will automatically exclude that particular document from that search, and you will be able to proceed with what you're working on. So having understood all those logical commands, we then go back to what we were searching. So we now understand why I have or in between this now, and then I put the words in a quote so that it must search for this exact phrase, smart city development or smart cities development. So in any document that these are existing, they must be included. So having done that search on Scopus, I have a result of 1,471 documents existing in the database. How do we then work with that? Now that we have 1,471, we then need to start doing what we call screening. So there are different things to look at. I'll just take us through the different things to look at now. So you can have a way of extraction, looking at how your research is executed. Remember, I limited mine from 2015 to 2024. You can then start looking at the subject area. Based on these outputs that we have at this point in time, there will be a particular menu here which you can refine the search. So you start looking at, is this particular research I'm conducting, is it within the engineering field, or is it within the environmental sciences, or is it within computer science field? So all of these things would influence how I refine my search. Then also the source type. Am I looking at journals and conference papers only, or am I looking at journals and conference and book chapters? Or am I including book chapters also, or books specifically? Or I'm only limiting the search to journal articles only? Whichever source type you're limiting it to, you must be able to justify why. Probably if you're looking at journals only because you believe journals have gone through a more rigorous review process, and as such, findings from journals will be more dependable compared to findings from conference papers and the like. So you must be able to justify why you are limiting your search to a particular source type. Then also the language, you can include a particular type of language you're limiting your search to. It could be English only, it could be English and Spanish, English and German, whatsoever. All of that options will be available to you depending on the search outcome. So if we go back now, we can see on Scopus, you see all these different options. The year I've limited to would be the first one. So I can choose to limit it to a particular author name, subject area, document type, source type, publication stage, the keyword, the affiliation. There are different options that I can select from here. And once I have refined my research, based on that. If you look at the first search outcome here, you see the first paper here is talking about a feminist framework for urban AI governance, addressing challenges for public-private partnership. And then the second one is a book chapter on the role of 6G technology in smart city development. You will agree with me that the first one might not necessarily be speaking to smart city development that I want to look at. So using the refined search option, you'll be able to filter through what you want to achieve and what is applicable to your research. So having done that, we then have the findings or the output reduced to 445, as you can see here. So once you have reduced the content to what is reasonable and what's relating to the research you are conducting, the next thing to do is to export the findings now using this option. So you click on all, then you click on export button. This export button here brings out this option. So you're going to select the CSV file option. Click on all, click on export, and then select CSV. Once you click on CSV, this screen will pop up. Then you select citation information, select bibliographical information, select abstract and keywords, funding details, and other information, so that the information to be extracted will be robust, and then you can be able to do whatever you like with it on your Vox viewer. So once you have selected all of that, you then click on export button here. So then the step 3 would be to move on to Vox viewer now. If you have not downloaded it, you can always use this website to download the Vox viewer software. Once you have it downloaded, you have the screen coming up with something like this. So this is what the Vox viewer software looks like when you open it, having downloaded it. You do not have to install the software. The way it works is it comes, once you download it to your computer, it comes as a zipped file. When you open inside, you see the exe file named Vox viewer already. So once you double click on that file, it opens itself automatically. There's no need to install on your system. So once you do that, when you open the software, this is what you see. The first thing to do is you click on create button. So once you click on create, then create map menu will pop up like this. So you select, there are different options to conduct your research. You can create a map based on network diagram, create a map based on bibliographic data, or create a map based on text data. So for the purpose of the first, remember we have a particular objective that we have set out to achieve for this study. So for my objective 1, the process I'm following would be to create a map based on bibliographic data. Then I click on next. So then the next screen will come up to choose the data source. So I would say, because I've downloaded from Scopus, you see Scopus is under this option here. If I'm downloading my output from citation or referencing tools, this is the option to select. But if you are downloading from other databases like your Semantic Scholar, OCC, Microsoft Academic, and the likes, Crossref, all of that, you select this option. Mind you, I've downloaded mine from Scopus, so I'll select this option, and then I click on next, which then takes me to this screen. So I must select whether it's from Web of Science, Scopus, Dimension, PubMed. Because mine is from Scopus, I'll select Scopus, then I'll click on this button, which takes me to my computer to locate the downloaded file from Scopus. So having selected the file, then I'll click on next. Now, remember, objective 1 is to identify the countries and authors with highest focus on smart city development in the last 10 years. So what we do, we focus on countries first, then we focus on authors also afterwards. But they will follow similar process. This is what will come up after selecting your Scopus file. It will then ask you, do you want to do co-authorship, co-occurrence, citation, bibliographic coupling, or co-citation? Remember, we want to identify the countries and authors. So that's citation based on the authors. Then we also want to do citations based on the country. So we start with the country first. Country, we click on country, then you click on next. When you have established the countries, we will come back to this page, this stage rather, and then you select author and then you proceed in that order also. So if we click on country and then we click on next, it will show us this screen. It's now asking us what the threshold we want to set for our findings based on this document we have extracted. Remember, we extracted 445 documents from Scopus. Now, what this is telling us is the minimum number of documents from each country. Usually, I would not set this as one document because then that means all the countries we have extracted would be qualifying to proceed to the next stage. So, but this is at your discretion. You can select you want all the countries to be listed, and it will give you the information below here. So, out of the 445 documents that we downloaded from Scopus, 38 of the 38 countries were established for all the documents. So the moment I say I'm restricting the number of documents for each country to 2, it will tell me that only 11 of them meet the criteria. And then I'm also using minimum number of citations from each country. So from this particular output I'm working on, I'm limiting it to 2 documents per country, and each of these documents combined must have 10 citations. So if they have 2 documents, but they do not have up to 10 citations combined, the country will not fall into the category of this analysis going forward. So out of the 38 countries, based on this criteria I've set here, 11 of them are meeting this criteria, and as such, I can click on next. If I want to reduce it, I can change the number of citations to 5. It's at my discretion. I need to justify why I'm doing that. So for this, I would say the reason why I'm doing 10 citations is because I believe each citation, each document should have minimum of 5 citations to at least establish impact of that publication in the body of knowledge. So if each document does not have up to 5 citations yet, then I do not see the impact of that particular publication in the body of knowledge. So having done that, it then lists out the different countries, the 11 countries that met that particular criteria. So you can see Austria has 2 documents, and the 2 documents already have 17 citations. But the highest here is India and China. And even though India has 13 papers published already, you can see they only have 20 citations compared to China, which is having same 13 documents, but they have 321 citations for their publications. Also, if you look at South Korea only has 3 publications, but their publications have 272 citations. That shows you the impact of individual documents. Then also United States has 10 papers, and the 10 papers have 231 citations. So it could then be inferred that India having 13 documents but only 20 publications raises a red flag. Could it be that they are just publishing, but the publications does not have impact? Where are they doing these publications also? Are these just journals from India as well? Maybe it's just a thing of, I have a paper and I have a friend who is having a journal outlet, and I just give it to my friend to publish for me. So the paper might have not gone through rigorous review before it's qualified for getting out there to be published. So once you have this information here, you can just extract this to proceed to developing a chart, a country chart. So what you do is, for you to export this, you right click and then select export selected keywords. So once you have selected all of them and you right click here, you see the option to export selected keywords, and then you take the selected keywords to Notepad or to Excel, arrange them the way you want, maybe in alphabetical order or in descending order, the highest documents, no country, or the highest citation and all of that. Once you've done that, you can also go to this website, mapchart.net, to produce a map using that information so that you can have something like this. This was generated from that website, mapchart.net. So with this website, you can then have this chart developed and then copy it to put in your article you're going to publish at the end of the day. If you notice, based on the extracted data, there is no publication from Africa yet. So if you are a researcher from Africa, automatically that's telling you there is a way, there's an opportunity for you to create a niche for yourself in that particular field. So you can start looking at smart city development if you are in that field and start doing research within that area. Within the next 5 years, that will give you opportunity to have citations if your papers are published in reputable journals which have gone through the proper rigorous review process. So that helps your paper to get out there and people get to cite it more because they want to see what's happening in Africa, also what's their perspective. All of that gives you an insight into how to start creating a niche for yourself. You see, based on your analysis, you're already seeing a gap in the body of knowledge and you are able to determine the trend or the future gaps to fit your research into. Okay, there's a question about the website. I'll show that again. It's MapChat, mapchat.net/word. So if you just search online, you'll see it, mapchat.net, and you'll be able to create your chart based on the information you've extracted from there. So now that we've established for the country, we then go back again to that same step. Remember this step here, where we selected countries. So now we select authors in this case, so that we can see the different authors that are working on that particular area also. So once we've done that, it then shows us that we have 264 authors. Now you can decide again, how many documents per author do you want to use as a criteria? And then what's the minimum number of citation? So for mine, I selected at least one document must be from the author, but each of those documents must have minimum of 20 citations. And it's then saying out of the 264 authors, 27 of them meet the threshold. If I feel like this is too much for me, for my analysis, I can increase again the number of citations to 30 and see the number of authors that meet that threshold before I click on next. So once I do that, it then lists out all the different authors. So you can see from this list, you have the documents 111. There are some that have 2, and the citations are listed here. So even though these 2 authors have 2 citations, 2 documents rather, their citation is 29, which means they've collaborated twice to publish together, and that's why their joint citation is 29 each. But you can see there's one author who have just one paper and it has been cited 272 times. That tells me that there's a possibility that this Ahmad Hay is an authority in this particular smart city development field I am carrying out this research on, because from just one publication is already having 272 citations. So same approach of how we exported the content, you select them, right click, and then copy this information to Excel. So you can then adjust it on Excel, arrange them as you want, maybe based on the highest number of documents or based on the number of citations, and that information is ready to go into your paper that you are writing for publication. Then I move on to the objective 2, same approach. So in this case, my objective 2 is to identify the most cited published work and also the sources. So we are looking at the paper itself and the source where the paper was published within the last 10 years. Same approach, we select citation, and then you have the option for documents. You also have the option for sources. So you select either of the two based on what you intend to achieve, follow the same procedure, determine the criteria you want to set for it, click on next, and then it brings out the output. Same approach, you can highlight this export it to your Excel and refine the table as you want. So as you can see, there are 0 values for the links, which means these authors have not collaborated to do any paper outside their own paper that they have done with their own set of authors. So what that tells us is there are no links between the people publishing in this area, which is the smart city development at this point in time, based on the documents. None of these documents have been co-cited by any person, or they have had any link whatsoever among the authors. So you also extract this information, put it on Excel, arrange them as you want, maybe based on the alphabetical order of the authors, or based on the highest number of citations in our ascending or descending order. Then you proceed to the source also, using same approach. Minimum number of documents from the source, maybe 1 or 2. Minimum number of citation, you determine that as well. And it's saying out of the 445 documents we downloaded from Scopus, there are 57 sources that these articles were published at, and 13 of them meet this particular criteria I've set. Then I click on next, and then it will show the list of outputs, the sources where these publications were put in. So you can see ACM is having the highest number, which is a conference. So possibly that particular conference team is specifically smart city development or smart city approach whatsoever. And based on that, that's why they have 13 papers in that conference alone, focusing on smart city development. However, even though we have 13 documents, there are only 18 citations from their conference papers, compared to computer networks where you have just 1 paper published there, and that paper is having 272 citations already. So that will tell you that any paper published in computer networks, which is a journal outlet, most likely have more people reading them, thereby having opportunity to cite them. Or it could be that that particular paper has actually done something tangible with empirical findings, which then speaks to what other people are doing, which makes them to cite them. So there are different approaches you need to look at it. You must not be stereotyped or be biased in the way you describe or interpret the findings. So you might want to first go online and check this journal, see the trends of their publications, and see how many citations each of the papers have, so that you are able to then make a discussion of the findings based on that information you've gotten. Same way, you highlight them, copy the content to Excel, arrange depending on maybe the document or the citation or the sources in alphabetical ascending or descending order, and you are able to then export it into the paper you are working on. Same thing, you move on to objective 3, map out the research focus. Now, the approach here is we're not looking at citation anymore. We are now looking at the co-occurrence of the keywords, so that we can see different areas that people are looking at. Once we've done that, we click on next. We set the criteria again. So for this one, I'm selecting minimum number of 3 occurrences, and then I click on next, which then shows this. So, but for this, I'm not going to just use a table to represent the findings. I want to see the network diagram. These are the various keywords. We can see smart city is having the highest occurrence, obviously, because our research is focusing on smart city development. So you can also see smart cities is having 32, which means there are people who have used the word smart city. There are some who have used smart cities, which means I assumed right by combining the two of them in our search, rather than just limiting ourselves to the smart city, and then we are missing out on the other 32 that could have also improved the robustness of our research. So once we are at this stage, we don't need to export this to Excel, but if you wish, you can still do that. However, I would rather just click on finish, which then takes me to the network. So based on the keywords from all the articles we have downloaded, this is what we are seeing. So we have smart cities as a cluster. We have another one, which is smart city, which is also another cluster. Then you have different color codes indicating the different focus areas that people have looked at. So we have people looking at smart city and big data because there's a link between all of them. And you can see these links, they come in different sizes. This is showing you the strength of each of the links. If you go back here, you can see the total link strength also. It varies. So smart city is having the highest total link strength of 177 because most of all the other contents are linked to it. And you see urban growth is the second one, which is having 53 occurrences and 164, which means if you come back here, this is smart city. The next one here is urban growth. Because it's almost overlapping, that's why the word here is not showing clearly. But there's a way you can reduce the scale or the size variation so that each of the cluster keywords can show accurately. And then you can be able to make information from them. So smart city is interlinked with urban planning. It's linked with all of these different color clusters. And that shows you the different focus areas that people are looking at. So smart city, someone has written paper looking at smart cities in terms of electronic commerce. Another person has written a paper that looked at smart city in the design approach. Another person has looked at smart city, looking at the vehicles. Someone has done renewable energies relating to smart city. So these are different areas. You can then look at this to say which aspect is still missing that I can then look at if I'm doing a research on smart city. That gives you a gap. So also you can see there are different clusters which have been identified. In total, there are 6 clusters, which is what you can achieve when you click on this item menu here. So you can see the different clusters. Cluster 1 is talking about city development, energy efficiency, energy utilization, green computing, and all of that. Cluster 2 is talking about big data, decision-making, information management, which also tells you when you have big data information, it's easier to make decision processes, which links up all the different content here together. The third one is talking about artificial intelligence, buildings, renewable energies, and all of that. So that means people are talking about how to incorporate artificial intelligence into buildings towards achieving renewable energies. All of this becomes the qualitative analysis that you would then bring in by describing and discussing all of these findings. So if you are going to export this network diagram also, what you need to do is click on File, and you will see the option to screenshot either as JPG or PNG file. And you select whichever is applicable, and you can paste that network in your own documents or your paper which you're writing. So in essence, this is what the export would look like. You now have the network visualization showing you the different keywords and what the various approaches that people have looked at smart city, how they relate into one another. Then the next one will be the objective 4, identify the research trends. So this is now more or less like the last part. Having established the different keywords and how they link up, you see there's an option here that says overlay visualization. Previously, what we looked at is the network visualization. So the overlay visualization would then tell you the trend over a period of year. So from 2015 to 2018, for instance, these are the research areas. The color code here will indicate what the recent ones are talking about. So around 2015, people were looking at information technology, electronic commerce, the design of smart city. Then gradually the focus moved away from the design, the information technology aspect to, in 2018, they are now talking about big data, public policy, vehicles, artificial intelligence. You see the difference now, green computing. Those yellow areas, mobile applications, tells you what people are now looking at. So gradually the years, the color changes, and you are able to see what people were looking at. So it made sense that people were in 2015 talking about the design approach, because now at that point in time, smart city is just coming up. So people are still talking about how to design. Gradually, focus moved on to urban planning aspects. How do we plan information management, information technology, cloud computing? All of that are relating to the information aspect. And then gradually it moves on to the current spheres where we now have big data, the artificial intelligence, the smart vehicles, energy, urban development, and all of that. So these are the things you then bring in when you're doing the discussion, the qualitative aspect of your findings. So this is an extract of what the overlay would look like. And based on this now, we have achieved the 4 objectives that we have set out. There are more that you can do with your Vox viewer, but I've only limited this demonstration to the 4 objectives only. So the last part of what we'll be talking about is now compiling this into your research paper. So for you to be able to do your research paper, you can align them in this particular order. The title, then you have the abstract for your paper. You do the introduction, which would be a systematic literature review to discuss what smart city development is all about. What are the different conversations that have happened about smart city development, what is currently happening, and all of that. Then you do a discussion of the research method you have adopted. You explain the database you have used, the keywords you incorporated into the database, the total number you obtained from the first search, how you did the refining of your search and all of that before moving to the findings, and then you present the findings based on what you have exported. The publication per year, the publication per country, the publication per source, most published or cited authors, the most cited documents, area of focus of the past studies, and also the trends in the publications, which then gives you the opportunity to suggest areas for future studies. Having done that, you then come back to do the implication of findings, which is also another qualitative systematic review approach to make sense of the information you have exported based on all these different findings. Then you can have the conclusion and the references. So tips, I see we've spent most of our time. I'll just quickly brush through this and then we can take questions. So tips on how to report based on each objective. It makes it easier that way. Then open the CSV file downloaded to get more information on each of the most cited documents, to use that to report your findings and then be able to make more sense of what they are looking at. Then carefully evaluate the cluster of the keywords and give reasonable and relevant names to each of the cluster. The cluster, you could name them maybe the first one that talks about smart city, urban development and the likes. You can have a particular name that combines what the different keywords in that particular cluster is. Then emphasize on the relationship of the cluster to your work. You can highlight how these existing works relate to yours or how they differ. Don't box yourself into finding how they relate only. If there are areas where they are different from what your own research is looking at, please itemize them also. And in your reporting, be very creative. You don't have to be robotic in how you report. Just be creative and make everything make sense. So for your research methodology, you can adopt a chart like this, the Prisma literature review charts, just to itemize the different approaches you have gone through in order to achieve the number of articles you then exported to your analysis. Then you can draw up charts using whatever information you have exported to Excel. Maybe the trends based on the number of years. These are the number of papers, the different sources that they are coming from. Are they editorial, journal articles, conference papers? You can always do things like this. Then the network diagram, based on the country, you can also generate things like that. The map for the countries and all of this. So all of this information can then be played around to achieve whatever you want. Then you can also generate a framework based on the cluster of the research focus. So it depends on how you understand the dynamics of that particular research area and the way you have named the cluster of research in the network visualization. and then you come up with a framework based on that. So in conclusion, bibliometric is becoming popular in all research fields. You should not be left out in your own research area. Set out to conduct a bibliometric review to try and understand what people are doing in that area. And then you are also able to generate traffic to your own research profile. It's always a quantitative study of various aspects of literature, but you need to bring in the quantitative aspect also, because the qualitative aspect will give insight into the quantitative study that you are obtaining from the software. Then it is also used to gain insight into the dynamics of growth of knowledge in a particular research area that you want to work on. So please, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I know we've spent, I think, some minutes beyond what we were supposed to do this afternoon, but thank you very much for your time. Yes. I'm seeing the chat box and I can see there are some questions already. Mr. Jensech, should I take them?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the MVP would anchor the question and answer, sir. VP over.
Thank you so much, President. Thank you so much, Dr. Opeoluwa, Akinradewo. We really appreciate the presentation you have given out to us. It's very clear and straightforward. We really appreciate you. Thank you for the impact. I think some of the questions we have here, if I'm not mistaken, because the network signed me out at some point in time, and I cannot see the previous ones here. So the first one I'm seeing here comes from Tolulope Balogun. She said, can we search different databases and combine in CSV file before analyzing with bibliometry, e.g. Scopus plus Web of Science? Yeah, maybe if we have two source files, maybe from Scopus, we search from Scopus, and we also get from another source database as well. Can we match those two CSV files and analyze it at the same time on a bus? So I think that's the question, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much for that. Yes, it's possible to do that. You just need to refine and make sure you align. So, for instance, if you've downloaded from Scopus and Web of Science, you then choose which one of them you want to stick to as the template you are importing into Vox Viewer. So content from your Web of Science, if you're adopting the Scopus, you make sure it aligns under each of the columns the way Scopus have named the columns in that CSV file. Then also you need to now check for duplications, because there could be some articles that you already have in your Scopus download that are also on the Web of Science. So you need to critically screen the data, align them to whichever template you're adopting, whether it is the Scopus template or the Web of Science template. And once you have done all of that, you can import it to Vox Viewer and run your analysis. You're good to go. So just make sure you also eliminate the duplications from the content you have downloaded from both databases before you can proceed with the analysis. I hope that's clear enough.
Okay, thank you so much for that response, sir. I believe she's clear with the response, or if otherwise, please raise up your hands to ask for that question, or you put it at the comment section as well. Then the second person asked two questions, which is the person of Dr. Emmanuel Uche. And the first question says, is it sensible to include some aspect of bibliometric analysis in an empirical study, maybe as a process to justify a research draft? And the second question together says, how was the framework generated? Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for that question, Dr. Emmanuel. Yes, it's sensible. It's actually what people do now. Rather than just having a bibliometric review paper, you can also combine that bibliometric analysis under the literature review aspect. so that it gives an insight to your reviewers or the readers of the paper that you've also established a particular, or like you've mentioned, justify the research gaps that exist to then situate your own research on that particular area which you have conducted the study. So it's not out of place. Also, I've seen people now do that for PhD studies also. So for the PhD thesis, you see there's a section in the literature review where there's a bibliometric analysis conducted just to identify the different gaps which the PhD study is now fitting into. So I think that clarifies the first question. Then for the second question, the framework aspect, it has to deal with how you establish the clustering for the network visualization results that you have obtained. If I go back to this one as an example, so what we have here, if you look at the cluster, we have 6 clusters in total here. So looking at each of the clusters, you can have a name that combines them together. So once you be able to establish a name for this, you can then say a framework for smart city development has 6 different constructs. And each of these constructs are the name that you are giving to each of the clusters as you have them from this particular section. So it's more or less like what we now have in this particular framework that we establish here. So you then start to identify these are the different contexts that people have talked about, which then leads us to achieving smart city development at the end of the day. When we talk about this construct, we talk about the smart city, say maybe the information design aspect. The next cluster talks about the artificial intelligence incorporation. So based on that information specifically, that's what you are then going to adopt in determining or in generating your framework. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I guess if he has further questions, he would also drop it at the comment section. Thank you. Okay, thumbs up. So he's good with the response. Thank you, sir. The next question says from Tolulope Balogun, says, are all the map viewers also available when using Bibliometric?
Oh, yes. When you're using any of the other, even if it's site space, you can always extract that information using the map network, the networks rather. I think the person is referring to the networks. Yes. So the networks are available on Bibliometric, even though the design or what it looks like is a bit different from what you have on maybe VoxViewer or site space, but each of them has their own map network viewers.
Thank you so much, sir. I guess maybe she is okay with that response. If otherwise, she can also drop it. Then the next question, someone says, thank you so very much for the insight section. It is an eye-opener. Thank you so much. Great. Not just the questions this time around, but also giving you the comments from the people based on the impact you have made into today's presentation. So we really appreciate you. Taiwo Asan says, how did you determine your criteria for exclusions?
Okay, so usually the criteria for exclusion is at the discretion of the researcher, but you must be able to justify whichever criteria you are adopting per time. So say for instance, the criteria of choosing 2 documents per country and then 10 citations from those 2 documents, it is at your discretion to say, because automatically if you say 1 paper or 1 document per country, all the countries would meet that requirement. But you remember your research is trying to look at the impact of all these publications in the body of knowledge, not just to include them in your research. You're also looking at the citation analysis. You want to see how impactful each of these research has been able to contribute to the body of knowledge. Then also in your discussion, you are not specifically going to list 57 countries to start making a discussion about each of these countries. So most of the time, your discussion wants to focus on maybe the top 5 who have been able to publish in this particular area. So you can have all the 57 countries listed in the table, but you are not going to discuss the 57 countries. So all of these are just criteria to limit the content you put into the final paper at the end of the day, and also based on what other people have done. So you can use that as your justification for the criteria for exclusion. So if 2 other articles or people who have done bibliometric review in that field have conducted their research and they used 4 countries or 4 papers per countries with a particular justification for their research, you can adopt similar for your own paper as well. So it's usually at the discretion of the researcher to know what to use as the criteria for exclusion of papers. So I think that clarifies the question also.
Thank you so much, Dr. Opeoluwa. Thank you. At this time, we have some other questions here. But before then, if there's anyone live that wants to ask question, please raise up your hand so that we can entertain your question. Then someone, Said Abubakar says, please, can we have access to, oh, yes, to the record session? It's been said earlier that after the section, we are going to post it on our YouTube, NANSSA YouTube channel. So please, you can access it, and we will also share the link on all our platforms. Thank you so much. Then Chosen David says, thanks for your insightful presentation. Are we to cite all the references where the data has been extracted?
Okay, no, you will not be able to cite all the references where the data have been extracted. Reason being that, let's say, for instance, your search, like the one I used as an example here now, we have 445 documents that were extracted from Scopus. So if you're going to list 445 documents in your reference list, I don't think any journal article would accept that. So when you're making the discussion or you're reporting, say for instance, the country of publications, you have extracted 7 countries and you are talking about the authors from those 7 countries. Automatically, those authors from these 7 countries that you have mentioned in your discussion must reflect in the reference list also. So it's basically the different content that you have exported into the research itself at the end of the day that will show up in your reference list, not necessarily all the articles that you have downloaded from Scopus that you subjected to the analysis. I hope that also clarifies that question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for the response. Someone says, how can I download Scopus? That's from Alan Olatunde. And I think he also asked a previous question. I think I omitted it when my network was not stable. I said, can people from theology also make use of Voice Viewer, I guess? And if that is not the right question, please, Reverend Alan Olatunde, please raise up your hand to represent your question. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. I believe bibliometric review is not restricted to a particular field. So be it theology, medical line, built environment, arts, whatsoever, as long as there are published articles within that area, then you can adopt bibliometric review to analyze the published content within that particular field of study. Then downloading Scopus, you cannot, maybe I should not say you cannot. I only know Scopus to be a website. Possibly they have a app, yeah, possibly. But on your browser, if you can just go to www.scopus.com, it will take you to the home page where you can then search for documents and extract for the analysis. It's the Vox viewer that you can have access to download online.
Thank you,
So
sir.
I think, yes.
Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Samuel also asked, beside literature review, can I conduct bibliometric analysis to justify my choice of methodology for a research? I think he has made mention of this earlier, that we can also use it in under our literature review to justify the current research. So we also hand it over to him if he has further things to say about that. Thank you, sir.
No, I think, yes, as you have mentioned, it's applicable. You do not restrict it to the literature review aspect only. If you want to establish that these are the various methodologies that people have been adopting for their study, which is also what you are going to be adopting for yours, or why you are intending to adopt it for yours, then that's applicable. The only challenge is when you're searching for articles now, remember your bibliometric review will not specifically search within the methodology aspect of the papers you are downloading from the database. Usually it's searching through the title, the abstract, and the keywords of those articles. So it's not necessarily searching through the methodology section. What it can only do is help you identify maybe the top papers within that research area, which you would then go download and then check through their methodology section to be able to understand what methodology they have adopted for their research specifically. So I think that's the dimension that you can find it very useful to justify your choice of methodology. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Opeoluwa. Someone says, Chosen David says, if you don't have access to Scopus, what can we do? Then he also asked, can you please put us through the downloading process now? Thank you so much.
I don't think there's anyone that needs access to Scopus. I believe you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see some.
Okay, so I'm trying to search. This is scopus.com. So all you need to do here search. That's for auto search. Subject area. So I believe Scopus does not require any particular access for you to be able to search for documents. Do we get it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so then there's the other part that says, can you please put us through the downloading process now? You mean downloading articles from Scopus?
Please, can you clarify your question, Chosen David? I guess that's what he's trying to say. Maybe downloading the CSV file, or maybe, yeah, I think you've explained the way to download the Fox viewer earlier, so I guess it's asking about the CSV download.
Okay, yeah, I
it
think
said
this
downloading
is the
Vox
limitation
viewer.
here.
Downloading Vox viewer, that's what
Vox
it's
viewer. So we're going to download
So
Vox
can
viewer.
I ask a question, please? Okay, can I clarify something?
Oh, okay,
Hello?
sorry.
Okay.
Please hold on. Let him sort out this first. So please, you are coming next, please.
I want to say something about the Scopus. I just discovered too that they can also use Stellenbosch. Sorry, it's not only people that are Stellenbosch there, but I discovered that they can also log in through the university link there. I just log in there with the Stellenbosch University and I've opened it. So it's possible the university also has a link with the Scopus.
Yes, so that's correct. Okay, for the Vox viewer download, you can always download it from their website. It's voxviewer.com/download. You see the option, and then this is the one for Microsoft. If you're using the MacBook, then this is the one to download. If you're using Linux, then you use this third one, which is once you click on it, it then just downloads to your computer by default. So it brings up the option to download it to your system, and that's it. Okay, I see there's a question that says, how can we minimize similarity index? Similarity index, it depends on how you write. Remember, similarity is looking at the structure of your sentences in line with other people's published structured sentences. So it's now a thing of wordplay, how you structure the way you write your sentences. You just need to make sure yes, you're reporting, because obviously bibliometric review is following the same trend of reporting approach, but the structure, the authors that you're reporting in your research will be different from the authors the other person is researching, except if you are carrying out the same research on what the other person have done already. So I would not say there's a particular way you'll be able to minimize your similarity index. You just need to structure your sentences differently from what other people have done. You should be fine with that. I hope that clarifies the question also.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I guess he will ask if it's not clear enough. Someone said, for what number of journal articles can we say is justified enough to conduct bibliometric reviews?
It's a bit dicey to say there's a particular number, but from a rule of thumb, I would say if you have over 30 outputs that you intend to review for your research, it would be time consuming to want to start reading individual documents and make a systematic review. So rather you can establish the background to the study from maybe 10, 15, and then holistically you do a bibliometric review for articles beyond 30. It will be too much of a time to start sitting down to read over 30 articles and then make sense of their content. So there's no given number. There's no given number in the body of knowledge that justifies why you should start a bibliometric or review or not.
Thank you, sir. Someone says, can Google Scholar be used?
No, Google Scholar does not give you the opportunity to download a list of publications based on a search string. So because of that, there's no way you want to export the content from Google Scholar to then take into a software like Vox Viewer.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. Then someone says, for students that are not in South Africa, do they have access to Scopus database?
It depends on where or which school that person is affiliated to. Usually, yeah, most of South African institutions would have access to Scopus database, but if the person is in Nigeria, for example, I doubt, except maybe for a few private institutions, you might not necessarily have access to Scopus database here. So that would be a limitation.
All right. Thank you so much. We actually ran out of time. We really appreciate your time and the presentation. It's indeed awesome. Thank you so much. Because of our time, we will only be able to entertain maybe one more questions from the people in the house. Please, if anyone wants to ask a question, please kindly do that now. Unmute yourself and ask just one person, and then we'll be able to round up the program for today, workshop for today. Okay, thank you so much. No one.
Mr. Chosen David. There's a Mr.
Hello.
Chosen David and or Miss. Yeah, I don't know.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, our presenter, Dr. Opeoluwa. Thank you so much for this insightful presentation. And sincerely, it's a heart opener, and really got the whole jig. So, but one thing I'm finding difficult here is how to really go about the download of the voice viewer. You know, as I click on it, I discover that the thing direct by default, it's downloaded on my system, but it's requesting me to download Java for desktop. So I don't know if I should go ahead.
Yes. Some laptops do not come with the Java extension to be able to open the software. So you need to proceed to download the Java. It will give you the link to download it itself also. So that makes it easier. I think I omitted that. There's a link for people in the presentation also. I'll share the presentation with NANSSA at the end of the presentation. There should be a link in where, yes, you will be requested to download Java if you don't have it here. So there's a link here to download Java for your computer also.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. I would like to hand over to the president, sir. Thank you for your time and for the nice presentation.
Thank you, too.
Thank you, GenSec, Mr. Jayi. We really do appreciate and thank you, President Mr. Jayi and the GenSec for anchoring today's event. And above all, we thank our speaker, Dr. Opeoluwa. Thank you very much. To the esteemed and distinguished members of NANSSA, we are very grateful. And every time we have workshops like this, hardly do we have you complain about us exceeding the time, even though we try as much as possible to manage the time. But we'll still apologize for the extra 30 minutes that we did it into your today's activity. On behalf of the entire executives, we say thank you. At the same time, on behalf of the committee planning the NANSSA National Convention, we also say thank you. Like I said when I started, I said this is one of their babies for National Convention. Next month, please look out for another research workshop like this. We will keep you informed. Just ensure that you are always on the WhatsApp group and always as in paying attention to the WhatsApp group. We'll keep you informed, and we would also encourage you to share such events with people that are non-Nigerians. That's your research bodies here and there, because they would also benefit immensely for this. Once again, Dr. Okpe, thank you very much. We are so grateful, and God bless you. God bless everyone. Do have a wonderful and awesome weekend. Please try to contact your institutional leaders to be added to the WhatsApp group, because we have to verify that you are actually a scholar within South Africa, because I know there are some scholars in Nigeria that are on this workshop today, but you have to be studying in South Africa, in one of the South African institutions, before we can actually officially you to those groups. So contact your institutional leaders. However, those numbers I'm saying, I will contact you personally to find out which institution and direct you to your institutional leader. Thank you once again. Have an awesome weekend. Follow us on our YouTube channel. We will definitely make the recording available there. We would upload it. Thank you. God bless you all. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. In fact, a lot of names. So permit me to just keep calling everybody doctor. Thank you, Dr. Samuel, Dr. Abdisalam,
Thank you, Dr. Okpe.
I'll just keep calling everybody Dr. Adetayo, Dr. Benjamin, Dr. Builder, Ibidayo. Thank you, Dr. Chika Odele, Dr. Chineye. Just permit me to call everybody doctor. Dr. Baselim from Convent University, Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Erika Kitemi, thank you. Dr. Esson, thank you. Dr. Idris, Dr. Ismail. Just permit me to call everyone doctor so that nobody comes to sue me to court for not putting doctor in front of their name.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, everyone. God bless you. Yeah.